determining the right KPIs for improving asset reliability. My name is Johnny Bofilios. I'm with Asset Analytics. I have a background of enterprise asset management for 20 plus years, combined with numerous customer implementations and reliability type projects. I've joined Asset Analytics a couple years ago, and my passion has always been in focusing how to get the most out of those enterprise asset management systems, whether it's CMMS or EAM, or whether it's some other applications that are bringing in to get data together for you to make better decisions with it. In this presentation, we're going to focus on around determining the right KPIs for improving asset reliability, and how do you determine the strategy, and what are the right metrics, what are the effective metrics, and then even looking a little bit into how the data can support those metrics. I start with everyone on this call probably is on a journey around enterprise asset management or asset management. You know, every organization's goal is to move from reactive over to predictive, and as you move into this journey, so does your data goes through a similar journey in your processes. So as you know, what's happening is if you're in the reactive and planned mode, your data is typically in multiple systems. It might be mapped, it might not be mapped. It's you know, you might have some or limited data governance. For instance, you might have duplicate records, or you might have this asset system, you know, the asset register in multiple systems, different names. But as you move through your enterprise asset management journey, your data and your systems go through the similar journey as well. And so as you move from left to right, and you get to that proactive, predictive part of your program, then your systems and your data starts allowing you to make better decisions and actions, and giving you better insight. So the discussion today is, you know, when we're talking about determining the right KPIs for your asset reliability journey, you know, the first thing that comes to my mind, and the first thing that should be thought about when you're developing the hierarchy of your metrics should be, you know, what are my business challenges? What are my business objectives? What is the organization trying to, what is the goals of my organization? And then once you've identified those goals, then you gotta identify, you know, what are the right metrics that are aligned to those business objectives. And then after that, you need to determine, you know, is my data quality and my data integrity able to provide me the information to achieve those goals. Once you know, it's a journey. You know, as you look at the first phase is, you know, you want to go from reactive to proactive. But once you decide that you want to change the paradigm, then you got to say, okay, what is the end in mind? A lot of organizations go in, put systems in place, and then they try to determine what the end in mind is. And once they, you know, for example, let's just say I implemented an enterprise asset management system like Maximo or SAP or Infor, and I'm trying to determine mean time between failures. Come to realize I didn't implement the system to be able to support mean time between failures, because I didn't allow my users or my mechanics and technicians to enter the right data. So unless I have that end in mind, I'm not going to be able to give to take that journey from reactive to proactive. And then once I do that, once I've identified the end in mind, then I can map the right data and the right processes and allow my users to be able to make user-friendly, timely, and actionable decisions and provide that information with them as well. A lot of times what we see is customers have already invested in good systems. So once they determine what metrics and what scorecards they need to measure, most times they can leverage the current infrastructure that they already own, whether it's their business objects or Tableau, ClickView, or Cognos, and then they're able to implement that within their current infrastructure that's already developed by their current IT. So let's look at some considerations. The first thing that we would do once we determine what our business objectives are. Well, if we're going to map the metrics to that, some considerations we need to make. The first consideration we need to do, and because everybody's that's really what's important to the C-level or to the executives, is, well, how do we look to our stakeholders? How does our organization look? And so, what are the metrics that are going to help us financially? Well, some of those metrics are, return on asset, profitability, capital investments, return on investment, return on asset based on maintenance, return on asset value. Whatever those metrics are, they need to be understood and determined and mapped to the financial objectives of the organization. Then another consideration could be your customers. What is our objectives, and how do we look into support our customers, right? So if we're going to serve our customers, let's just say we want to provide a product timely, effective, on time, quality. So those are metrics that we need to make sure that we've aligned and we're measuring. Maybe internal processes. How do we improve OEE, or overall equipment effectiveness? How do we improve mean time between failure? How do we, from a people standpoint, how do we help our people, understand are they having the right training? We have the right people doing the right things, the right metrics. So these are some considerations that can help in assisting you in determining the right metrics for improving asset reliability. So here's an example. In this example, this particular customer, the GM's objective was to improve cost per unit, okay? So basically, it was all about how do we improve profitability. So if we're going to improve profitability, we need to improve to the main metric. The main goal of this particular general manager was this. And so then we determined, okay, well, what impacts that? So then there's the two sub areas, which will be production and then work. And then as you can see, if I start moving and I look at production, I'm looking at productivity, I'm looking at OEE, I'm looking at waste throughput or quality, production, and then again I keep drilling down, and I can develop a scorecard or a hierarchy of my metrics that are aligned all the way at the top, but also can be taken down to the areas that support what makes that lagging indicator. So for example, in this particular example, let's just say OEE. So we're going to focus on overall equipment effectiveness, and then maybe we'll have a sub-indicator under OEE where we want to look at some particular area. So this one might pertain to production or operations. So if operations is to improve, they want to improve losses. So and they'll define what the metric is, which will be overall equipment effectiveness. They'll define what what they consider good, and what they consider the range, and then they'll break that down between the sub-metrics, which will be availability, performance, quality, and then let's just take, for example, availability, and then we're going to say, okay, what makes up our availability? So then we'll break some sub-indicators underneath, and we'll just break those. So at the end of the day, the lagging indicator is overall equipment effectiveness. The leading lagging indicators are availability, performance, and then the leading indicators would be, you know, for instance, patch change, cleaning, sanitation. And all those are what's going to drive the overall equipment effectiveness. So when we're looking at change over time, we've got to improve change over time. Well, how do we improve change over time? Well, we're going to improve it because we're going to improve batch change. We're going to improve cleaning. We're going to improve sanitation, sanitization, adjustments, changeovers. So if we're going to improve speed losses from a performance issue, how are we going to do that? We're going to improve minor stops, speed, you know, all the types of things that we need to improve that eventually will get us to the OEE. So I'm hoping you can see developing a strategy like this provides you that starting at the top with your business objectives, then aligning those business objectives and drilling down. So let's go even further. Let's drill even a little bit further down. Let's say we're going to look at, now we're going to reliability. So our goal is, if we're going to improve, you know, performance, OEE, or we're going to improve our internal processes and operations, and improve equipment uptime, one of the components is reliability. In order to improve reliability, we have to improve, say, minimize the time to repair and minimize time between failures. And then if we drill down and say, okay, if we're going to minimize time to repair, then we need to improve our labor skills. And then if you go back to my scorecard, that talks a lot about the people. We have the right people, you know, doing the right things at the right time. We got to improve planning and scheduling. We got to improve labor availability. So at the end, as we're developing this hierarchy, we're also aligning the right systems and the right data to help support this hierarchy journey that we're to develop, this strategy that aligns the KPIs, again, back to our objectives. So now, a couple of interesting things here. You know, if I drill down, say, on planning and scheduling, which I have an example, you know, right here, as you can see, if I'm going to minimize unplanned work, then my objectives, right, start, as you can keep going, and you're finally providing the information to the stakeholders, to the end users. You're helping them make better decisions with the data. You're bringing it all together, and they understand what the goal is, what the objective is, why you're trying to do this, and then where you're trying to, what the impact is overall through the whole organization. In this particular example, when we developed, you know, we came in here and we developed the right leading lagging indicators and the right information, the right reports, and the right data to the right people. We improved labor planning and scheduling by 37%. Labor utilization, when the direct impact is, going back to there, is it improved mean time to repair. Well, when it improved mean time to repair, then all of a sudden we start seeing, okay, and move over to the right, and we improve mean time between failure because we started improving compliance and all the other aspects that make up mean time between failure. We start seeing less breakdowns, more equipment reliability, which again drove it back up to improve the availability of the equipment, which improved the OEE, which eventually got back up to the general manager's objectives, which is to improve, you know, cost per unit. Once you determine the strategy and you've identified, okay, this is where I want to, this is the strategy I'm looking to achieve. This is the scorecard. These are the right indicators. These are the right lagging indicators. These are the right leading indicators. And let me just clarify. Sometimes, you know, question comes in, well, how do you identify what's the definition of a lagging or leading indicator? There's some good examples out there. I heard a good one. I don't know if some of you go to the reliabilityweb.com or the International Maintenance Conference by Terry O'Hanlon, but he uses a great example of, you know, if you're going to lose weight and you say, okay, I need to lose 30 pounds. That is your lagging indicator. your leading indicators will be, okay, how am I going to lose those 30 pounds? So what am I going to do? Well, I got to count calories. Well, that's a metric. I have to count the calories I burn. That's another metric. So as you can see, that once you understand how to define what the leading and lagging indicator is, you can develop the right strategy and the right hierarchy. Once that is done and that is understood and completely agreed upon on the organization, the next thing is determining the metrics, right? So you can do one of two things. One is you can create and calculate your own metric, or you can use some of the standard metrics that have been defined out there by industry best practices. For this example, let's take SMRP, Society of Maintenance Reliability Professionals. They come up with 80 or so metrics that encompass different work streams. For this example is equipment reliability, because I was talking about this in the previous one. So we talked about, okay, we're going to include equipment reliability. What is the right strategy? Now, does it necessarily mean you have to use all the metrics that they have? No, but once you determine the right strategy and you understand what you're trying to do, you can then go in to the appropriate metric that's been defined by an industry practice, whether it's ISO 14224, ISO 55000, SMRP, and pick the right metric. They've already determined how you should calculate it, what the calculation is, and where systems and data should be coming in from. So that's one way to determining the appropriate metric for the appropriate strategy. Same as I was talking about the minimizing unplanned work, planning efficiency, and then moving down. The same thing can be said. You can see that there's work management, work planning metrics based on the SMRP, or work management, work scheduling metrics. And if you're not a member of the SMRP, or if you are a member, a lot of these metrics are provided to you as part of the membership. If not, you can just check it out. But most organizations utilize some of these industry practices metrics once they determine the strategy, because these pretty much align with most business objectives. Now, does it necessarily mean that if you're going to do, say, PM compliance, you have to follow the exact definition of a metric defined by an industry practice? At least it gives you a starting point. Some organizations determine PM compliance, the due date of a PM. Some determine it the due date plus an X percent of it. But either way, as my point here is don't try to recreate the wheel. Try to leverage as much of information that's out there and created by industry best practices. So one question, everyone kind of talks about, well, okay, I understand, I'm going to come up here and I'm going to determine the right metrics, but, is data really that important, or can I, sometimes process is what I need to improve on? Well, we've done some analysis and studies, and we showed yes, process and technology is key, but unless you have the right information and the right strategy, there's no way you can assess or identify the asset performance. So let's look, for example, if I want to identify my underperforming assets. So I need to really have the data that can rank my assets based on utilization, my availability, my reliability, my cost. So it's very important that I define a system in a way to capture this information. Sometimes when you're doing a criticality analysis on your assets, do you have a right metric that says, well, we're supposed to identify X amount of assets that's critical. How many have we done? How many we've got left to do? What is the impact of that exercise? Same can be said if we want to monitor asset performance. We talk a little bit about that because we're talking about OEE and uptime, and so we need to understand utilizing methods like Pareto or mean time between failures and mean time to repair. We want to identify equipment that may need to be replaced. Well, how do we know? How do we know something needs to be replaced? Unless we're capturing the cost, the maintenance costs, inventory, labor, contractor services, indirect costs, fuel, electricity, all the things that make up a life cycle decision. And in most cases, that data is spread through multiple systems. You might have all the indirect costs in finance and in your enterprise resource planning software like Oracle or SAP or Infor. And you might have all the maintenance costs in your enterprise asset management or your computer maintenance management system like Maximo, SAP, Infor, Oracle. But how do you bring those two together, and how do you identify the right strategy that can help you make these, asset lifecycle decisions? Another example of this is looking at from a reliability standpoint. How do we understand the availability of critical equipment? So we want to look at the data from an estimate trend of equipment using some type of model, metric, monitoring the impact of strategy and process change for reliability, managing the risk. We're evaluating the effectiveness of our reliability center maintenance program or predictive program. A lot of organizations, especially from a condition-based monitoring point of view, they'll go out there and they'll do oil analysis, vibration analysis, infrared or whatever kind of analysis they'll do. But how do they know that that program is having a direct impact to the reliability program? So wouldn't an indicator be a valid indicator to say, hey, you know what? We've invested. We did this amount of oil analysis and investment. We did this type of thermography. We did this type of vibration analysis, and then we measure that back to the mean time between failure, which we measure that back to the reliability of the asset, which we measure that back up to the uptime, to OEE, which eventually improves the cost per unit. And I see this many, many times, and I see this all the time. And I say, okay, you've invested a lot of money in your condition-based management program. What impact does it have? Well, we don't know. We just, that's being done over there in that little group by itself. So being able to bring that information together in a strategy really helps making better decisions and demonstrating the leadership, the impact of your reliability program. So let's look at an example. Okay, once I've identified my strategy, I know, what is the right KPIs. I understand how those KPIs can assist me, how they can improve. So what does an output look like? So we'll jump out of here and we'll go to an example. So this particular example was done in the reporting technology called Business Objects for SAP. Now there's different types of reporting technologies. I'm not necessarily advocating here. Business Objects, a lot of these metrics, once you've identified the right metrics, the most efficient metrics, the most effective metrics, you can utilize Business Objects, you can utilize Cognos reporting, Crystal reports, BERT reporting, which comes with a Maximal tool. You can use ClickView, which is another analytics type tool, Tableau. There's different tools out there. So I'm not advocating any type of solution, but what I want to do here is kind of highlight, all right, I've identified what I'm trying to improve. In this example, I'm looking at maintenance, reliability, mechanical integrity, and turnarounds. And these are more of the lagging indicators, crawl, walk, run type thing. If I do eventually want to get down to the data, I can develop a different role-based type process. So let's say here I am looking at my, I want to look at my PM compliance. Well, I can click on a particular site. I can say, okay, my PM compliance for this particular site is 89%. And over to the bottom here, I can look at a particular week, click on that. So I can have that indicator, and I'm able to view it, see the trend over time for that particular site, and then even maybe if I wanted to look at the work orders for that particular week, I can click for the drill down even further. The goal here is to demonstrate a view of leveraging your technology, but also the impact that it's having. Sometimes I get the question is, all right, you know what? This is all good, but we're having we don't have the data right now. We're not capturing the data inside of enterprise asset management, or we have the data in multiple systems. How can there's no way I can put this together. Again, if I go back to my original discussion, was if I don't have the end in mind, and if I don't know what a baseline is, yeah, maybe this particular site is 41%, okay, and maybe they are not capturing their data. But until I decide what the end in mind is, and then put the right process and the right effort into making sure we're starting capturing that data, making sure we're starting driving to collect that data, making sure that we can, organizing it to get to where we're trying to achieve. So some sites have good data, some sites have bad data, some sites have okay data. But all data is good. There's no bad data, because data has a story, and you just need to determine the right path for it. So don't get constrained on saying, well, you know what, we don't have the data, so we're developing this. We'll do this later. This is not something we want to do. It's never too late, but it is important to know if you're embarking on an enterprise asset management journey that you need to start thinking about the end in mind. And the end in mind comes back to the strategy of what you're trying to develop, what you're trying to achieve, where you're trying to go, and then map that strategy to the right metric and then to the right systems to make those decisions. So another good metric is, hey, if I'm going to improve the data, I should probably improve the utilization of the system that's capturing the data. So that could be another way and another metric and another KPI that you can incorporate into your strategy to help drive the maturity of your data and the maturity of your process and the maturity of your key performance indicators. So if I click on reliability processes, these are all the metrics around my reliability programs we talked about earlier: mean time between failure, mean time to repair, maybe the average cost of an asset, maybe the percent of root cause analysis that are overdue or not due, on items that we've got out there. But similar to what we did earlier, click on a particular site, I can see the trend below. I can click and see what the mean time between failure is for that site, for that trend, and even go look at the work orders. Clicking on mechanical integrity. And what's interesting here is, right, some of this data, especially downtime data or mechanical integrity data, cannot be even, maybe it's not even tracked in your enterprise asset management. Maybe it's tracked in another system. But there is a good way to bring all those up together and make decisions with it. So, or if you just, you have a very, immature mechanical integrity program, or you're just in an infancy stage, you might just want to start tracking, what are our inspections? Are we doing our inspections? Are we doing the things we're supposed to be doing? And then tracking those as metrics and being able to report on that. And so as this example, what I really wanted to highlight was that as I am determine what my maintenance strategy is, what my right KPIs for my asset reliability strategy, I determined and develop them in a way where I can present them to the right role-based user to make this decision. So this might be an executive or VP, or maybe somebody in the reliability program, or maybe they'll have a different dashboard for planner and scheduler. They'll have a different dashboard for a maintenance technician. So, but the key here is once you determine the metric, you got to create a way that you can present it to the people making the decisions. In any journey, in any determination of, we're talking about the right KPIs, there's different opportunities. There's opportunities in the data, which is the data integrity, the data quality, the data life cycle. Data goes through the same life cycle as an asset does. It starts, it's conception, it goes in, and over time it either improves or does not improve. And and you use data as the center of the journey, and then you use the data. Without the data, you can't analyze the data. You can't look at the asset performance. You can't do the dashboards, and you can't. And then of course, once you get to, as you move from the left to the right, we talked about, then you start doing some of the things that you can help improve your program. So, for example, data can help me optimize my maintenance, repair, and operations program, MRO. How do I know how many spare parts I've used over X amount of time? Am I using the right spare part? What impact does my parts have on my reliability program? If I'm doing preventative maintenance optimization, or job plan optimization, how do I know how many job plans I have? How many job plans have been kitted? Have hours booked against them? How many job plans have labor? How many job plans have been actually utilized? So data can help me drive a lot of the decisions I make, but again, without the strategy, I can't get to this is the second part. So as I'm wrapping up here, before we go to questions, I am talking, it's all a journey, right? So as you start improving and understanding what the end in mind is, then you start improving the data, and then you improve user adoption. And as you continue to go up this spiral here, it's all about understanding the end in mind, understanding what are we trying to achieve, and then creating a path for to get there. So as we talked about initially, we're looking at here as the journey from left to right. You can kind of see when you create that end in mind, you can make better decisions, but you can make better decisions based on the systems and the hierarchies and the data, and eventually data, as I have on the bottom right, the data drives information, which drives insights, which drives decisions, which drives actions. So at this point, I am going to allow for questions. I have some questions here. So if you have a question, please type it up in the panel, and then I will review the question and answer it. So I have one question. Okay, hold on. I get 2 questions. The first question is, will this webinar be available for viewing after this session? The answer is yes. It's being recorded and will be posted on our website, and you can have access to it anytime you want. The second question, that's the same thing. Can I request a webinar? The answer is yes. All right. So here's so I got a question that says, well, one of the examples, new work to Santa Clara has 36% delta on reactive work. How do you know this is not due to lack of data? Do you have measures to determine and collect if data is being collected? Very good question. And yes. So sometimes there's a way, as I talked about the data goes, do we have the data, how are we having the data, how are we collecting the data? So there's, you can develop a strategy for data quality as well. So you want to make sure maybe, there's a couple different ways you can look at this. So let's just say, for example, I want to look at the data that's being captured by a technician. So maybe I want to determine, okay, you know what, these are the fields that I am providing to the users, and these are the fields that I need to capture, so I can do PM compliance, mean time between failures, certain things. So here's an example where I can do it by site or by technician or by crew, and I can say, okay, are they putting in the data for, are they putting all their work orders on assets or functional locations? Are they putting in the job plan numbers? Are they putting in their priorities, failure codes? This doesn't necessarily mean that they're not doing a great job. This could mean that there's a training problem. Maybe our hierarchy isn't deep enough. Maybe all our assets are at functional locations versus assets. Maybe we haven't identified the right failure codes and made too many failure codes, or we didn't provide them. Maybe our job plans are not, are not effective or efficient. Maybe we don't have any priorities. So this is one way of determining the quality of the data. Another way is to look at maybe I want to look at the data quality across for different information, right? Like in this example, for my assets by site. I want to see, put other descriptions in there, other types, GL. So there's different types of ways to create metrics and strategies for, driving good quality data. And again, I love that question, because that question is, you're right. And that's why I said, sometimes doesn't necessarily mean that they're not, their numbers mean that they're bad. It just means that that data is not captured. All it's intended to do is provide visibility and processes to help drive better data. Probably a very long-winded answer to this question, Mark, but thanks for the question. Here we go. Another question. Where to start? Which area? Seems like a big elephant to get everyone involved to enter data right, as well as the structure there to, sorry, I'm reading here, to support the end in mind. Second, how do you get others to support? That's a very good question. This is a webinar, so I'm trying to encompass the big picture here. But as I said, sometimes you don't have to really start with the complete end in mind. You might want to pick an area such as reliability. So you say, okay, you know what, we're going to focus on reliability, and we're just going to create the right strategy and the right metrics to focus on that. And then maybe later we'll pick up, environmental health and safety. Maybe then we'll pick up. So you don't necessarily need to start with the complete end in mind. In this presentation, I kind of wanted to show the holistic view and where you could end up at. But we do have, and we do a lot of projects where prospects and customers do, bite this as little chunks at a time. Maybe look at work management, then look at reliability, then look at MRO optimization, and etc. And then to answer the second question, is how do you get others to support? That's a very good question, and a lot of times, if if you can bring all the stakeholders into one place and start going through these discussions and showing this types of this exercise and this type of information, you get a lot of positive support. You know, the only way you can get support from anyone on anything in whether it's this or life or whatever is you've got to bring this awareness and desire. And what we've seen is everybody wants to do the right thing, they just don't understand how to get to it. And this kind of brings a little bit of insight to organizations and helps them see, all right, now I see, you know, think about this, and I hear this all the time. I'll hear a technician say, I don't know why I'm creating work orders. This goes into a big black hole. What's the purpose? Well, this can help provide that visual. Their purpose is because, look, see, if you get this data, then we can get this information, which eventually drives up to this, which eventually is going to improve equipment reliability. That's going to have customers, make customers happy, whatever that becomes. I mean, I know this sounds like pie in the sky stuff, but there is ways that you can educate and create this awareness and desire in your organization. Let's see, another question. I stated SMRP site to get metrics. Is there any other sites to go for a company who has a lot of data but not sure how to develop metrics? Well, there's a couple of different organizations. You've got the Society of Maintenance Reliability Professionals. You've got the International Maintenance Conference, which is reliabilityweb.com. They have a framework that they utilize called the Uptime Element. That's a very good start and metrics that you can use. There's also ISO 14224, which is an oil and gas standard, but has now been adopted by chemical and process industries. And then there's the ISO 55000 and 55001. So if you go, most of the time, if you go to reliabilityweb.com and start there, it could pretty much navigate you to different organizations, and they've got a lot of good free content and a lot of good information that you can leverage to start off with. All right, next question. I got a lot of questions. Would be an email. Would it be okay to send you an email after we're done today? The answer is yes. My name is, I'll put back the PowerPoint. You can have my email address right here. It's johnny.bofilios@assetanalytics.com, and my number is on the bottom. So you can feel free to contact me anytime. And I am going to, okay. The next question, what kind of KPIs would you recommend to help in determining asset replacement? So there's numerous. I could sit here. If you want to, why don't you email me and I can answer that question. So there's a whole process for asset replacement. Some of them we talked a little bit at the high level at the beginning, but if you send me an email, I'll send you a sample example of we do replacement asset value and calculating costs and numerous types of metrics that support that strategy. So Eric, just send me an email. I'll be happy to send that back to you. The next question is, I have more direct maximal questions on developing scorecards. Okay, so that's all right. There we go. Next question, estimate time to implementation. In my experience, how long does it take an organization to make this culture shift from limit data to rich, including buildings KPIs? It's typically a minimum of a 3-year journey. If you look at the spiral that I was talking about, it depends on the maturity. One of the things we engage in is what we call it an analytics readiness assessment. When we come in, and you could do the same thing yourselves. Just look at the number of data sources you have, the number of data you have, the types of metrics and KPIs you're measuring today, the type of impact that it's having. You kind of need to do an analysis and an assessment. It's typically similar to how you do your EAM or your asset management assessment. You need to do an assessment, same same assessment of your systems, your data, your KPIs, and the people entering and the processes. And there you can determine on that maturity curve where you are, and from that will determine the journey. But from experience and working with large organizations with life sciences and automotive, oil and gas, we've seen that journey take a minimum of 3 years. But at the 3-year journey, you'll see that you're capturing such good data, and the processes that you've invested in even mature as well. Okay, I got quite time for one more or 2 questions, depending on how long-winded I'm going to be. Do I have example of data content compliance metrics in real-time dashboards that can be used to identify route work orders back to tech start and center it for completion? Probably should have read this at first, because I would have walked you through that. But if you're interested, whoever's interested to seeing an example of data content compliance metrics around, to identify en route of work orders, please email me and we can schedule a follow-up webinar, and I can walk you through some of that stuff. All right, I got time for one more question. I got to tell you, this is the most questions I've had in this. I must have done a great job. How do you explain the fact 80% of failures occur randomly, yet we focus on MTBF? Ooh, I mean, somebody's not an MTBF fan. You know what, Louis? I'll be honest with you. I'm not saying that MTBF is the right metric. In this particular case, I was just demonstrating an example of developing a hierarchy. Yeah, there's, MTBF has its ups and downs. In this case, from our perspective at Asset Analytics, and when we talk to customers, we don't endorse MTBF or anything. We just try to identify the right metric and the right solution to solving the business objective. All right, and that is the end of my presentation. Went 1 minute over, but I do appreciate everyone. Based on the success and the input I got from everyone, we will do a follow-up on this. Look out for the invite. If you have any questions and you want any more information from me, or maybe a follow-up to get a little bit deeper, please email me or call me at that number, and or contact one of the resources that organized this event. And in that, I appreciate it, and everyone have a wonderful day, wonderful Tuesday. Thank you.